All right, 3, 2, 1, and go.
Hi, folks. Welcome to our Saturday night live in support of our Purple Heart Project, which, by the way, 2 weeks from tomorrow, they'll be here. I'm going to read the names of all the students that are coming in a little bit. Tonight's is a free-for-all. Ask me anything. You might or might not get an answer. Hopefully one you like. As soon as Frick's got them ready, we'll go. Have lots of guests with us here tonight, so I'll introduce them as soon as they get in here. We had a late dinner. What else can I tell you? Any other news from around the shop?
Oh, you can tell them about that chisel.
What chisel? Oh.
Just a
So,
snippet.
Just
Just a snippet.
make you aware. Every once in a while, somebody does something to challenge commonly held beliefs. So the last one was the strength or the effectiveness, the efficacy of planing.
Gluing.
Is that the one we used?
No.
Oh, it was there. Of gluing end grain. And just everybody always avoided it. And somebody did a video of it. So we decided to try it. And we actually, when we filmed it, when we did the YouTube, we filmed it. We did it live, meaning we didn't test it and then try it. We literally did it there. And I was dumbfounded at how strong it was. Unbelievably strong. So, Stumpy Nubs, if you don't know his channel, I suggest you go to it and check it out and subscribe. He's good stuff, and he's been supportive of us as well.
What?
So
Mitch, they collapse.
try not to.
Mitch, they collapse.
Fred and Barney would have just cut it in half.
I'm sorry, I can't.
Anyway, talking about putting a back bevel on a chisel. Now, this is something that we've always said don't do. David Charlesworth, the inventor of the ruler trick, would have disapproved. But Stumpy's attitude was, okay, so if it's just a cheap chisel, and the problem with cheap chisels is they tend not to be very flat, so there's a lot of work to getting the backs properly prepared. More work than it's worth, actually. So we tried it. And
Don't reveal the
we
results.
used ours done the traditional way, and then we took an IBC chisel and we did it that way, so you can see the little back bevel on there. And I won't give you the results, but you'll see them. We'll release that video
Some point this week.
sometime next week.
Yeah.
Next week, yeah. Anyway, all right. Questions yet, Frick?
No, but just kind of going off the chat here. Are you going to sell handles by themselves, or are you going to sell them in a set like we see on your bench?
What are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Are we gonna offer handles, separate handles by themselves? I think we should. Especially now that we're doing them out of cherry. Cherry's our standard. These ones I do separately. Just managed to get this set done. This is fiddleback maple, some gorgeous stuff, and I've got more of it too, so I'll do that again. That stuff just lights up.
All right, I'm just going to read from the questions we have
Yeah.
before Luther
gets them.
filters them. This one's from Tim in Rhode Island.
Hey, Tim.
He says, what is your technique for hand planing around a mitered edge like on a picture frame?
We just finished doing that. Oh, on a picture frame. Okay, so that was a little bit different because that was mitered around a flat panel, but it was flush. The best way to do it is to literally plane in the direction of one piece, skew your plane when you get to the miter, and then literally come around and then go the other direction, 90 degrees, and then get there and go around and follow it all the way around. If you don't, you'll end up having your blade cross the grain at some point, and it'll leave a rough surface. So what you got to do is you've got to have your blade super sharp and waxed, so there's very little resistance, very light cut, so that when you get there, you can get that blade to line up with the 45 before you then start pushing in that direction. Get the blade to line up at 45 and then push in that direction. And you can get good at it. But before that, I always plane down, finish plane, two opposite sides, so that I'm bringing the other two pieces down to a finished side instead of trying to bring the whole thing down at once. So if I had 4 pieces making a miter, I would plane these two to finished dimension, which means when I put it together, they're going to be a little bit narrower than the other two, and then you just have to plane the other two to meet it. If I had a picture frame here, I'd show you that. Well, we did it right here on these doors. So we did that in one of our online workshops not that long ago. Next.
Dennis D. in Portland, Oregon.
I should actually take one of those out and plane it and show him.
He wants to know what is the best way to sharpen a router plane?
Dennis in Portland, Oregon?
Yep.
It's easy.
Just grab a blade.
I'll show you. Where are they, Jake? Right here. So I will take so this is for the 1/4 inch. This is a small one. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to prep the back. So you're going to treat it just like a chisel. And it's small. That's the reason why. So you'd start on your core stone, and then you would finish on your final stone. And sometimes it wants to do that. So just pull it. So I'm pushing down on the bevel and pulling. If you try to go this way, it stutters and stammers. So once you've got that back finished, then you're going to come into your core stone, and you've got to have it elevated. You're going to put a little micro bevel on there. So register off your primary, raise that up, and just some little wee short forward and back strokes. You don't have very much room anyway. Do that until. Chris, would you run? Can you hear them? You need to get them to be quiet.
I don't think
No, it's not too bad.
No, okay. Do that on the core stone until you can pick up a burr. Then step over to your 16,000. Raise up a little bit higher. And then set that down and just pull it. And there you go. Doesn't take much. And you don't use this a ton, not that you don't use the tool a lot, but you typically aren't cutting a whole lot of material, so you don't have to sharpen it very often. I should actually have a little better way of storing them than they're banging around each other. Good question. Next, Frick.
All right, this one's from Matt.
Actually, you know what? Before you do that, okay, ask that one. I'm going to take that picture frame out or this out and show them. Go ahead.
Okay, it's a long one.
Means I got to focus.
Yes.
Oh,
Never mind.
it's not my best feature. Try it.
Ready? Okay, so this is from Matt Erb in Florida.
Hi, Matt. Where in Florida?
Doesn't say. But
Makes me feel warm.
He says, I want to start making and selling furniture on the side. I have acquired a good set of tools and learned some intermediate level joinery and design, thanks in part to you. But my biggest problem is that I have no clue how and where to begin selling the pieces I make. So far, it has just been one-offs for friends and family, but I want to take the next step. Yeah.
That's the end of the question?
Well, it looks like it got cut off, but I think he said, where should I start or where should I...
Well, Matt, you're asking the wrong guy because I couldn't survive building furniture. However, I can probably tell you some things not to do. The worst thing about working for friends and family is that when you start, is you feel like you have to give them a deal, even though you really need to be fair to yourself. You have a business to run. You have to make money. It has to be profitable in order for it to survive. And that's almost always your first 6 months to a year of business. And that puts you in that mode of giving stuff away. And then it becomes very hard to turn around and charge what you need to charge to anybody else. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and tell you that the most important thing about running a business is making it profitable. You have to make money at it. If you don't make money at it, it's a charitable organization. And profitable means you have to charge enough so that when you've paid all your bills and factored in even so much as the depreciation on your machinery, and you've paid yourself a wage, there's profit left over. If there isn't, you're not running a business. So I would say I would put learning how to run a business ahead of learning how to design and build the furniture. And that's almost a direct quote from Chris Bexford, who would always teach that to his students who asked. Now, where do you sell it? There's a couple of options. One that I like the most is selling through galleries. And that the reason why I like selling through galleries is they do the hard part. Or they do, if you're a one-man shop, where are you going to find the time to find the customer, design it, procure the materials, build it, deliver it, and then take care of the paperwork side of your business, which takes an unbelievable amount of time, depending on where you live. So if you find a gallery owner that you can establish a relationship with, and they like your work, you build it, you build your designs, and I always got the most enjoyment out of doing this because it's such a thrill to design something that is original to you. You put it in a store, and somebody comes in who doesn't know you, is not doing you a favor, and they like it well enough to buy it. Now, the only downside of that is galleries usually going to take anywhere from 40 to 50%. So you've got to factor that in too, to your margins. But that's probably, if you're not having to, takes a while to get that established. If you're not having to eat immediately off of what you're doing, that's a great way to keep the woodworking part of your business creative, where you're actually designing stuff that you're inspired by that you make. I can't say that I enjoyed building for customers because usually your designs had to be compromised to fit what they wanted. And not that that's a bad thing, but people can be fussy. They are. And people don't have an understanding of wood. And sometimes they ask you to do things that are impossible, and they don't understand that no trees are going to look alike. I need to give you one more answer. So beyond families and friends, I mean, when I was doing this, I didn't have the benefit of the internet or YouTube, which is a great way of getting your stuff out there, although it takes a while, but at least it's a way. I suppose the other way is to go to, I wouldn't say flea markets, but go to furniture shows. You have to pay money to get in there. But you want to go, you got to decide where your price point's going to be, and then you got to go find that clientele. And home show, an upscale home show, places where people are going looking for furnishings for their home. Hey, as good a place as any. And hopefully your stuff is good enough that you catch people's attention, and it'll just go and grow from there. And referrals from your family and friends. But like I said, learn to price your stuff appropriately before you start. All right? Hope something in there is worthwhile. Next, Rick.
Daniel O'Connell in Ireland says...
Daniel in Ireland.
Yep. It says, I really enjoy using my RobCosman saws, but I'm afraid that when they need to be resharpened, set, and jointed, there isn't any tools out there I trust to do the job. Is there any chance you guys might think about supplying a maintenance set of tools to do the job?
Oh, yes. In fact, just today, Jake and I shot the product video for the new files that Jake found. These are actually precision triangular, what was the word?
Swiss pattern precision files.
Swiss pattern precision files. And they work beautifully. So we've been trying to find decent files, and it just can't.
Luther found these.
Luther found these?
Yes.
Oh, really? How'd it go, Luthi? They're nice and sharp on the corners. They're a very fine number 2 cut. We Cosmonize them by putting a handle with tape on there so you can get a hold of it. But I used it today for the first time, and it does a marvelous job. I would say a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Couple of weeks and we'll have them ready to go. They're going to be pricier than what you would normally find, but they do a job worthy of the cost. So if you want to sharpen your own file, sharpen your own saw, that's key. You're going to need a good vise, and you need a vise that's going to support your blade so that it does not vibrate. And I made this one. Now this was an idea I got from Tay Frid. I modified it a little bit so that you could actually put the handle right in there, and you could secure the blade from end to end. And we did a YouTube on this. If Luther can find it, he'll put a link in there where you can go in and watch how to build that. The other thing that you're going to want, especially if you're over 45, you're going to need some eyes. So I love these Optivisors. And this is I use a number 3 for most everything I do. And the last thing you're going to want is a felt tip marker. Where is it, Jake?
There's one right here. And a file.
Well, I have the file's right there. Oh, a straight file? Mm-hmm. So when you just get yourself a felt tip marker so that you can paint your teeth before you start. That way you know where you stopped, or if you happen to accidentally skip a tooth. So that really, that works. That's everything that you need. So we will...
He said joint and set.
Oh, joint and set. Oh, right. So to joint, you're going to need a good file that you can take the handle off of, and we got those as well. Is that the ones we're... Mm-hmm. So those are already available. And as far as a saw set, I think somebody looked it up, and Tools for Working Wood in New York...
No.
No?
I'm pretty sure I bought that from...
Who?
Georgia. Highland
Hardware. Okay, so this brand is Somax? SOMAX number 250. And that Anvil will give you... Yeah, it's a little more set than I would want, but you can always stone the set off after the fact. So there's the stuff. Now, got another question, Frick?
Wait a sec.
You want it now?
That's not the one I bought. Ken, see if there's a saw set on that hollow chisel mortise.
Well, you just bought it one?
No, I bought it a while ago, but I don't remember it looking like that.
Well, that's why I say I think that one came from
behind that other box.
Tools for Working Wood.
Might have. There it is.
So I'm going to go back and give a better answer on doing this mitered bit.
Here, this is the one I bought.
Is that brand new?
Yeah.
You never even showed it to me.
It was right there in the shop.
Cute. So this is an Eclipse 77. What's the scoop on it? Ooh, it's got a magnifier on there. Wait. Oh, yeah. Well, I'll take that off real quick because I can't even see through it.
Here's what he thinks of that magnifier.
Well, that's no good. So you're right up there on 10. Now, the only thing is sometimes... Wait a minute now. Jake.
What?
Well, this isn't working. Number one, that anvil's too bit wide. You wouldn't get you could do a larger saw, but you couldn't do a dovetail saw with that. I'll show you what I mean. If you can you get in there close enough? You see the width of the anvil?
Mm.
But I don't know what's going on here because this is way up above, not the anvil, pardon me, the pin. So that pin, what happens when you use this is it's a two-stage. So the plunger comes out, and the first thing the plunger does is push the blade against the anvil. This is the anvil. And that anvil has a slope that is milled into the face, if you can see it. As you turn it, the slope goes out farther and farther, which will allow for more set. So on our saws, we're going to want the minimal amount. So that means we've got to turn this around. That 10 is what we want. We want to have the 10 right up there. Actually 12. So the way this works is the plunger will come in, push the saw plate tight against the anvil, and then once it's tight, you continue to squeeze, and that little pusher hits the tooth and pushes it over against the anvil, moving it. Excuse me. Excuse me. The saw plate's held in place. The tooth is allowed to move over until it touches the anvil, which, of course, the more the anvil is laid out, the more set or the farther out the tooth is going to bend. But on this one, the plunger is sitting way up above the anvil. Now, that's crazy. Meaning, how are you going to control? It's going to push your tooth way over. That's something wrong with that.
Garbage.
Possibly. Or just something's wacky. All right, so put a quick edge on this. I'll run you through this process real quick if you haven't seen it before. So I'm using the Sharpen lapping plate. This is the premium system because the Sharpen is flatter than any other lapping plate you're going to get. And is it worth it? Absolutely. Is it pricey? Yes. However,
We just learned the specs on that the other day.
which are?
Ooh, I don't want to lie. I'm going to double check.
Wet your stone down. Take your blade. You're going to reference off of the primary bevel. You'll feel it. Once you get there, come up a few degrees. I'm on an angle so that I don't have my blade going off my stone. So that's why I'm not approaching the stone like this. I'm approaching the stone like this. Find that primary. I've got 4 fingers distributing the pressure as evenly as possible. Come up off of there. Lock my wrist, lock my elbow. Pivot from the shoulder. Just slowly move forward so that you're not working in the same spot. Get in about 10 seconds of honing on this first stone, which is the coarse one. Feel for a burr. Then jump over to the 16,000. Set the blade down on the primary. Come up a little bit higher than I did on the previous stone. And about 10 seconds of work. Doing the exact same thing, just at 1 or 2 degree higher angle. So only the leading edge is touching the stone. At the end of 10 seconds, downward pressure in one corner for 3, then the opposite corner for 3. Take your steel rule on the side. This is the David Charlesworth ruler trick that we talked about earlier. Elevates the blade less than 1 degree, but it makes it so that you're only working, or only having to work, the leading edge of the blade, and it saves a tremendous amount of work. Now I'm going to hold this so you can see it.
2/10 of a thou.
2/10 of a thou. So there's the. Can you get that shiny?
Yep.
Right. There's the other side. Now your blade, you might not have this. This is the luck of the draw. Ken, how often do you get one like that? Are you seeing? So Ken takes care of all these. How often do you get a blade like that? Rare. So usually it's going to be slightly concave, which means that shiny spot would be an arc, or there'll be a little bit of twist in the blade, and it'll go from narrow to wider over here. Doesn't matter. All you want to do is make sure that the shiny strip is continuous. Oh, Kenzie, you're just in time. Anything you want to talk to us about your horse?
No, I'm okay. So you guys still sit to leave?
She has a bed.
Yeah, we went to the beach.
Kenzie's horse Had a hernia. I was going to say something about glue, but I held back. Anyway, after how many weeks in the horse hospital?
5, I think.
5 weeks in the horse hospital, Kenzie is now broke. But happy. Money can't buy you love, but it can buy your horse a hernia repair. Yeah, whatever keeps them happy. Now I'm going to clamp this in place. A piece of this. So this one actually needed to be done. I don't know if you can see, but I got pencil marks on there and also got glue. So what I'm going to attempt to do is to go all the way around. Yeah, thank you. See if we can get this. Now this is wider than my, this is wider. Could have used the big plane.
Try it.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right there with the blade on the miter. Now, hold on a second. I've got to get. I don't want to use that to set my plane up. So I'll do it here. It's got a big old crack in it, so that'll throw me off. A little heavy on the right, so I'm just going to push my lateral adjustment lever. Okay, try that. Need a little more blade. Now I would come here. Get out here. Got a little bit of a... Okay, now I got to turn this around. Wait a minute, I already did that, didn't I? So I'm right here now. So what I want to avoid doing is leaving any kind of a crossing over. If I was to continue to plane this way and I cross over here, I'm going to leave some torn grain on that. And I don't want to do that. Okay. No, can't do that. The question becomes, where do you end? Oops, have I got something in here that's leaving a mark?
So that it?
I don't know what that's.
It's from your plane. You're scraping it with something.
I didn't hit anything. Yeah. I don't know what I hit, but I got a series of nicks right there. Anyway, get the picture. I'll go back. I had to go back in, resharpen to get rid of that, to get rid of those. But on the that last transition where you got to stop somewhere, have the blade set very, very light, and just as you're going, just lift off, and you should be able to leave it so that you don't have any mark at all. And that's on the underside, on the back side. All right, next, Frick.
All right, next one comes from Bono Robé in Amsterdam.
What's his first name?
Bono?
Bono? What?
He says, I want to use a dovetail in a modern chair build. Do you think the dovetail joint can handle the pressure in a 45-degree angle using 250 millimeter thick oak?
Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's to do it and test it. I wouldn't, I mean, a chair, you're talking about relatively thin parts. I would say just mock up the joint full size and just test that and see. It's the only way to do it, especially on a chair. You don't want somebody coming to your house sitting on your chair and having it collapse. Could be embarrassing for them and expensive for you. So test it. There's been chairs that have been done like that before, so I would expect it would work. Next, Frick.
Patrick Bishop in Swansea, UK.
Hey, Patrick.
He says, hi, Rob. What are your views on loose tenon joinery like the Festool Domino?
Yeah, I never used it. I know a lot of people do, but if I'm going to, I don't know.
Do you think they're as strong as regular mortise and
Well,
tenons?
technically they should be, because if it's properly glued, it's the two pieces of wood properly glued become one piece of wood. So I don't see why it wouldn't be. There's always some tradition that kicks in and governs why I do what I do. So if you're doing production, I understand. You're doing the same thing repetitively, then yes. Same thing when I did all those chairs. I started off doing them individually. I had 200 chairs to do. And I did them individually at first. I said, okay, this is crazy. I won't live long enough. So then I jigged it up, and by the time it was done, I bought a hollow chisel mortiser to cut the mortises, which was so much faster. And I bought 2 brand new rip blades, and I made a spacer. So when I put the 2 blades on my saw with the spacer and ran the board once, I had the exact size tenon I needed, and that sped things up. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm not opposed to using the right machine for the job, but I have no experience with that loose tenon. But I do imagine it would work just as well, better than dowels, just because you get more material. Next, Frick.
Next question comes from Barry Doxey in Benfleet, Essex, UK.
Hey, Barry.
He says, how do you select lumber or timber for your projects? I realize at some stage it becomes instinct, but is there still a process?
How do I select, hold on just one second. How do I select, hey, shh. Say it again.
How do you select what lumber you're going to use for each project? He says, I realize at some stage it becomes instinct, but is there still a process?
Yeah. So the things you want to avoid are boards that you buy that are already twisted. If you buy a piece of rough lumber and it's got a really bad twist in it, chances are it's always going to be twisted. You can go in and flatten it, but it's still going to want to twist. So first thing I look for is stuff that appears to be dimensionally stable, meaning not severely cupped, definitely not twisted, relatively straight. And then...
I think you might mean the type of wood. Well, it just says, how does Rob select lumber/timber for his project?
No, it would be more...
The boards?
One of the big advantages of getting to a point where you've got a little extra money is you can buy extra lumber. You go to the lumber yard, and a lot of times they're not going to let you do anything but take right off the top of the pile. So you need 100 board feet. How many do you have to buy? Well, we know from doing it that you need about 130 to 140 board feet to account for the waste. But that doesn't give you a lot of great selection. If you buy 140 board feet and you need 100, you're not going to be able to do a lot of picking and choosing. It'd be nice to be able to go in and buy 200 board feet, and then you can go through and be really fussy as far as grain and color and the rest of it. So I would avoid stuff that's twisted in the rough. I'd buy a lot more than I need so that I can go through. And if you're buying it rough, you don't see what it looks like until you actually run it through a thickness planer. And then you can I line up all the pieces. I'll put them on the table saw or some other surface, best side up, line them all up so you can see, and then do that to try to match color and match grain and the overall look. So we do a fair bit. I mean, I'm just trying to think of the last thing we built. Well, that cherry standing desk that we made, we were really fussy on that when we picked out the pieces. I tried to make sure that the legs all came out of one piece so that there was that continuity. So yeah, be fussy. Be fussy on the color, on the grain pattern. That's the best I can do. Next, Rick, good question, by the way.
Next question comes from Alfred Borg in Melbourne, Australia.
Hi, Alfred.
He says, how do you sharpen the blade of a
Tomorrow morning.
wheeled marking gauge prior to first-time use?
How do you sharpen
The blade.
The blade of a wheeled marking
on a wheeled
gauge.
marking gauge? Oh, it's an easy one. Show you. So we'll take the cutter off of this one. It's got a Phillips screwdriver, but I don't have a Phillips driver here because I took it. No, I do.
It's a small one.
So, and if you want really good cutters, and since we're talking about them, you want them to have a fairly acute bevel. If that bevel is too steep like this, then it makes it very difficult for it to penetrate the wood. You want something that's going to give you a nice severed line, across the board, and a nice fine line too. So the sharper it is, the better it's going to be. Now, depending on if you can see the edge, meaning you look there and you can actually see the edge, you got a lot of work to do. In that case, I would probably redo what I'd start in a more, let me explain it this way. This may be a little more than what you're willing to do, but I've seen cutters that come and they're terribly blunt. So if you take it like this, and if you get yourself a CBN wheel, which is nice because it's flat, and I would set up a little jig so that would just, when I say a little jig, you just need a board that you cut a groove in so you can set this right in it, and you can hold it there. And with that spinning, you turn this on and make sure that it's square this way and this way, and you can go through and you can get it so that it's really good. Now, if you want to take it a little bit further, what to do with it? There it is. So I'm going to start off with this 1,000 grit stone. I'll set it down there like that and just do little circles. And you're face honing. Now this probably isn't necessary. I think you can get as good as you need just off of the grinder. But if you don't have the grinder, or you don't have that set up, then you got to do this. And you go through. I do that until I can feel on the edge that it's sharp, meaning it catches my skin. And if you want to go a little bit further, you can go over to your final stone and really hone it up. I turn it every once in a while just in case I'm leaning one side or the other in the way I'm holding it, and then I don't take more material off one side than the other. Not that that would happen on this fine stone. Are we over here?
Yeah.
And the way to test it, on a piece of softwood, you should be able to easily get a nice fine cut with it. And you don't want it to compress, you want it to sever. That's it. Next, Frick. How many people do we have on, by the way?
541. All right, next question. Doesn't make sense.
Is, drum roll,
Let me see. Sorry.
running out of questions?
No. Ernie in Indiana
Hi, Ernie.
says, how do I fix excessive slop between the yoke and my new adjuster?
How do you fix excessive slop between your yoke and your new adjuster? Well, you probably can't, simply because you're trying. We have to make that slot in the yoke or in the adjuster. Let me show you what I mean in case somebody doesn't know what I'm talking about. So Ernie is asking this question. Tell me when you can go back to work, Jake, because
I'm coming.
difficult. I have to look over there.
Frick.
Are we switching?
You got him back?
Yep.
Okay. Hand planes 101. So here's our adjuster.
Can you take the
Handle off?
take the frog off?
Why?
It's just easier to see.
Oh, no.
It's
You
a
keep-
lot easier to see.
Oh, come on.
It's a lot easier to see and easier to explain.
Had this all set just the way I like it. If you don't have an adjuster for your plane, and if you're over 50, there's something out there relatively inexpensive that will make your life a whole lot better. Okay, so this is your yoke, this thing right here. Your yoke protrudes through your frog, and that little knob up there makes contact with that slot in the top of the chip breaker. So when you turn this, it pushes the blade and chip breaker out for a thicker cut, and when you go the opposite way, it pulls it back for a thinner cut. So now that you know how it operates, so Ernie's question is, how do you fix this? Well,
All right, show me that again.
how do you fix the slot between these ears on the yoke and this slot in the adjuster? So there's what most planes come with, a knob like that. We just found that there's no leverage, it's very difficult to turn. However, we have to make we have to make this slot big enough to accommodate most yokes. So, you know, if we custom made one just for your plane, it would work perfectly, but you wouldn't want the price. So I don't know what you're going to do. I mean, what you're trying to do is you're trying to eliminate this. And I can't think of a quick fix. I don't know what you would do. I would say just live with it. That's my only solution for you. You have to live with it. Because I can't think of any way that you can't compress that. Can't really add material in there. If there was some way that you could flare the ears on your yoke, but that's not going to be terribly easy either. I don't even notice it anymore, just because that's so easy to operate, especially on the shooting board. You just flicking it with your finger back and forth, and it gets rid of all of that stuff we call backlash. Okay, so I should say hello to, or introduce some of our guests that we have here tonight. I guess they're not guests anymore, they're regulars. Ken's there. Ken, if you don't know who Ken is, Ken's in charge of production on the other side of this wall. He keeps things running smoothly. Ken's over there. I don't know what are you doing tonight? Answering questions? Oh, good. So there's something we need to say hello to? Okay, so if you're a combat wounded vet that has been to one of our classes, so if you're one of the 95 that we've had, please shout out so we can shout out to you.
Don't do it yet, though, because I need to get him a microphone.
So what you're going to do is you're going to put @Ken in the chat section, and then just put you tell us your name and what year that you were at the workshop, and we'd love to acknowledge you. Moose is over here. Moose is the inventor of the dead cat. Curator of the dead cat. Moose always comes up and helps us out with the Purple Heart Project. Sitting beside Moose is Chris. Chris is the genius behind our latest developments in our shop. The reason why we make our saws so much better now than we did, and I thought they were good before, but they're even much better now. So Chris is always working on something for us. He built us the big vacuum press that I've shown you in the past. And working on the fourth axis for our CNC machine that he built us a year ago? Last December, so it's a little over a year ago. So that's where we now make all of our handles. And Frick's here behind the green globe, and his friend Irvin, who was here. Jake's behind the camera. Luther's on. Is Super Dave on tonight?
I haven't seen Super Dave.
Super Dave is MIA.
Bob is here, Bob Abbott.
Jacqueline's on. Danny Bell, Kevin Burris, Bob Abbott.
Okay, give me one time. So Bob, hello Bobbert. Bob is the maker of the tumbling blocks cutting board and some of the others that we've displayed. And Danny Bell, who is lives in Maine. Danny's wife not coming, or is coming?
She doesn't have a passport.
Oh, has it arrived yet? Well, she doesn't need one.
That's what I told her.
She doesn't need one. Danny's coming. Danny was in our class in 2019. Danny's a retired helicopter pilot. He flew Chinooks. And Danny's coming up. He's going to be our assistant for the class that starts 2 weeks from tomorrow. So we're excited about that. And who else did you say was on? Kevin?
Kevin Burris, yeah.
Kevin Burris. Kevin is 22 years EOD. I forgot to mention Bob was our U.S. Air Force Intelligence. And every time I say that around an Army guy, they say, well, that's a oxymoron. And Bob, you can respond in the chat. So Kevin does these for us. These are laser engraved on granite or...
You don't have the slate one.
Slate or granite. My granite one's upstairs. This is the one he did of the Canadian cruiser. And Kevin is in New York. Who else is on?
Our own Al McNeil is on.
Al McNeil. Al, who actually works here. Al was 22 years Canadian tank commander. Got blown up in his last tour in Afghanistan. He gave me this round. This is 105 millimeter anti-armor piercing fin stabilized, discardable fin stabilized Sabo round. That was his first round. That one's the first one that he shot. Although it wasn't made out of walnut. So Al's been working here for, how long's Al been here?
And Spider-Man.
Spider-Man? Spider-Man. Spider-Man.
Here.
No. He's camera shy. Who else did you say, Ken?
Gary Burnett.
Hey, Gary. Gary's down in Tennessee. Gary's Vietnam vet. Missing Danny Bell. They used to hang out together. Nice to see you, Gary. Who else, Kev? Or
That's
Ken?
it for now.
All right, keep me posted. Shout out when you get some. Okay, Frick.
Ahmed is
Is
on
Ahmed
a
on?
canoe.
He's on a canoe.
He's in a canoe fishing in the high Sierras, but he's still streaming.
Don't fall in. Ahmed is our purveyor of beautiful wood. He's down in Southern California, very accomplished furniture cabinet maker. And Ahmed made these. The last class, when he came to the class, he gave everyone in the class one of these custom mallets that he made. What else does he make up here, Jake? He makes some of the handles. He made all of my pretty handles up here, chisel handles that Ahmed made. And Jeff, I don't know if Jeff's on, but Jeff makes the Irish kiss sticks and the shave bowls and brushes. And Jesse Rufiange, who's a Canadian wounded vet, makes these displays for your cell phone.
Prize. Somebody's wondering what the prizes are.
So the prizes tonight. So the way we do this, thanks for reminding me. This is to raise money. Costs went up, food's up, airfare. We were paying for bringing in the vets for the class. We cover airfare, hotel, meals. We send each vet home with somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000 worth of tools. And thanks to Jack Lane and Jim Merzetti in Canada, and Chris Chahusky, who helps arrange the shipping, they get a bench delivered to their home as well. And the last time we had our class, I think our average airfare was $500, and now it's $1,000. So anyway, it's an expensive venture, but they're well worth it. So we do this to raise money to help fund this, and that's not true. We do this to allow those of you who want to participate in saying thank you to these brave men and women that have served us. This is your opportunity. So what we do in these broadcasts is at every $1,000 increment in donations, we give away a prize. So tonight, we'll start with, we'll give away one of Bob's, this will be the first thing we give away. Help me. Tumbling block. Thank you. Why can't I remember that? A Make Me Dizzy cutting board. And then we'll go back to Kevin. So then the second one we'll give away will be one of Kevin's, and he gives you, in fact, Kevin, so the last guy that won was in England, and he was a vet. And Kevin did a custom one for him, so he can customize it for you. And that comes with the display case, the rack. And then if we get up above that, then we'll give away a shave bowl and brush from Jeff. And then we always give away 3 dead cat sweaters. And there's something else that, that's it. So that's the lineup. So register for the draw. You don't have to, it doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to make a donation. But you can just go ahead and register for the draw. You do need to be on here when we draw them in order to get it. Next, Frick.
Todd Michael in Leaskdale, Ontario.
Hey, Todd. Oh, Canada.
He says, what was your biggest screw up and the best fix you came up for correcting it?
Probably was Jake.
And then you had Loren?
Huh?
And then you had Loren to fix it?
Yes. Biggest screw up. It's not.
Could be the racing string.
I don't need help. It's trying to sort
think
through
you need
all
to
of them and coming out. Well, since Jake mentioned it. So when I built the first bench, which is now Jake's desk, it developed a crack right along here. So when you build this bench, your dog strip goes right to, your dog strip is from here to here. So this piece is milled up separately, and you cut all your dog holes in it, and then you glue this piece on the outside. Well, it developed a crack right along here, the whole length. And I said, ugh. So what I did was, because I'd already had some different colored woods, this one, the one I'm talking about, I was using bloodwood. So rather than set in a piece of maple, I used a router and I cut the slot all the way down and I set in a piece of bloodwood. And it looked like a racing stripe, but it actually came to have a function. Because when you're putting a piece of wood in your vise and you want it to be standing plumb, you just have to eyeball the top of the board with the edge of that racing stripe, and that'll make it stand plumb. So that was probably one of the bigger screw-ups. It wasn't really a screw-up as much as it was something just went wonky. I guess that's a screw-up. But that fixed itself. If I could think of another one, I would be happy to. Because there's in every piece. Oh, so when we built the standing desk, what happened that we ended up? What happened to the standing? Oh yes,
Oh, we didn't really
it's right
fix
here.
it.
Where is it? So when I built this standing desk, which is made out of cherry and holly, we had made the drawer fronts in a manner that we had never done before. And that was that we took that piece of wood that was the face of where the drawers went, and we cut it all apart so we could take two drawer fronts out of it. And then when we glued the frame back together with the openings, those drawer fronts fit in there perfectly. But that meant there was no allowance for removing any wood. And we built the second drawer, and when I went to assemble it, the last dovetail corner, it was off. And if you remember me telling you this, if it doesn't line up like that perfectly, there's something wrong, and you're going to introduce a twist to it. And sure enough, we did. I was devastated. So I had to start over. But what was I going to do with this piece of cherry that I could not replace it, because the grain is such that when the drawers are closed, you can't even see them. So I'm walking around because somewhere in this room, because I can't throw it away, I have that drawer front, that whole drawer here. Jake, any idea where it is?
Well, I see it all the time.
Yeah, we're always stepping on it. Love to be able to find it right now and show it to you, but
There it is.
where?
Ahmed's corner.
Where? Oh, Ahmed's corner. Oh, yeah. So, here was the drawer. And to illustrate what I mean, I cut the back apart so you can see.
Well, set it down, yeah.
Well,
Just
I
can't
can't.
touch it.
You can see how that should be just like this, but it's not. So there's that much twist in it, which means in order to get it to fit the opening, it just wasn't going to be right. So what I did, that's the original piece. I cut a strip. I cut that front piece off, made a new drawer, and glued that piece of cherry onto the front of the new piece of cherry, so that when it closed, it was back to, you'd never know that it had happened. But that was a pretty big screw up. You'll have a major screw up on just about every piece of furniture you do, so you can tell how many pieces of furniture you built by how good you get at fixing the mistakes, because you gain that experience with every piece. Good question. Made me think. I could go on way too long with that. Next, Frick.
Michael 10 in Chesterfield, Virginia.
Hey, Michael.
What is the best plug cutter and method to prevent burning when cutting plugs from hardwoods such as purple heart?
Yeah, well, so I'll show you what not to get and what to get. Are they in here, Jake?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I don't. Oh, yeah, I do. So, I'll get here so I can steady it. These are the plug cutters I'd say don't get, because these ones burn terribly, and they don't work very well at all. They're cheap. So these are the ones you want to get. And these are much more rugged, and you sharpen them by filing that face on each leg. Maintain those angles, and by the way, when you do it, the best way to do it is to come in here and paint with a Sharpie. Paint the face before you start, and that'll just help show you where you're filing. What's up, Mick? And then you can just hit this end a little bit too. Same thing. Paint it before you do it. Just file that off. And that'll keep it nice and sharp. And if you go too fast, you risk burning. Go too slow, you know, there's a sweet spot there, and you got to play around with it a little bit. But what I do with these is I try not to go all the way to the bottom, because I don't want, what'll happen if you go all the way to the bottom, sometimes it'll break the dowel off, and then you got to get it out of there, and that is usually a pain. So if I want to make a bunch of plugs, I'll set my drill press so that I only go down so far, and I can just go through and do a whole bunch of cuts, and then I'll go to the table saw, and this is so you
Or bandsaw.
or bandsaw is even safer, and then make your cut along here so that it frees all of the plugs. Magnetized piece of walnut. There. Nobody's asked about that before, I don't think. Excuse me. Next for it.
Okay, next one comes from Chris Bryant in Indianapolis.
Hey, Chris.
He says, what pieces of furniture do you have in your home that are very special to you?
Pieces of furniture in my home that are very special to me.
I'm assuming that he means it. What you made.
Switch.
Well, our dining room table. It's a big. I would call harvest table made out of pine, and pine just because it's such a warm wood. The base is maple. It seats 100 or so. Seems like it. So that is, because of course everything happens over the dinner table, or at the dinner table. What else? Oh, I just finished it. It's actually in the other room. Somebody might be able to bring it in for us. The first chest of drawers that I built after spending some time with Alan Peters. It's made out of ash, fiddleback ash, and I've had it for 32 years or so. I really like that. Our bed, I've never posted a picture of the bed. I made my wife a cherry shaker style 4-poster bed, but I got a little more elaborate on the headboard and the footboard, and there's a lot of veneering on there, big wide cherry, and that's a really nice piece. I got a bookcase that I made in our second project in the hand tool workshop that we started in 2011. And that's a really nice piece of work. It's got all kinds of difficult joinery in it. What else? Kids all have chests of drawers that I've made. Ken?
Jesse's on.
Jesse Rufiange?
Yeah.
Hey, Jess. Oh, he's over here. Yeah. And my bench, it's not at home. It's here, not at home. That's what I can think of right off. Next, Frick.
This comes from Jim Sinowaski in West Homestead.
Hi, Jim.
He says, how do you build shop-based cabinets without any drawer slide hardware? Do you use a horizontal divider between each drawer that acts as a runner for the drawer to ride on?
Well, as soon as Jake has a little break with the camera. So what you don't understand is all the apparatus that Jake has to wear. How much does that thing weigh, Jake? So let me, just so you wonder why Jake takes breaks.
You can't. Unless you're gonna take
That's the
everything.
whole thing. So, tell me when they can see.
Back up a little. You're going to have to back up a little bit.
I have to back up?
Yeah, so we can't see the bottom. Yeah, that's good.
So I'm probably holding 40 pounds of gear. So he gets this contraption on, and then the camera hangs from this. So it's a lot of stuff. So I'll answer that question when he's back in line, because I'll show you the one that we're doing right here. You asked about shop furniture, and we've got some examples here, but I don't want to try to take it off of that remote camera because you wouldn't be able to see. So tag that one, Frick, to answer as soon as we come back. Next.
Okay.
I won't forget, Jim.
Tommy Robertson, Tuttle, Oklahoma. What do you think of attaching a tool tray to my Cosmon workbench with a French cleat?
What do you think about attaching a tool tray to my Cosmon workbench with a French cleat? Yeah, that's not a bad idea. But the only problem with the French cleat is that if somebody lifts on it, you just have to come up with some way of making it so that it can't accidentally get knocked off. But that's actually a really good idea. French cleat.
Or you could do it the way Tony did.
How'd Tony do it?
3-inch screws.
Yeah. Tony always has an interesting solution. Oh, by the way, I'll also remind him to show them the mother's cabinet right there. Mother's chest. Next, Frick.
Kent Boyce in
Hi,
Southampton.
Kent. Kent's coming in. Yeah, I was going to read the names.
Southampton, Ontario. He says, when first using your Sharpen stones for sharpening, can you use them right out of the box, or do you need to prep them first?
So if you're dealing with Sharpens, you need to flatten them. They're fired, so they're not flat. They're close, but they're not flat, so you always have to flatten them. If you're talking about a diamond plate, not the Sharpen diamond plate, but our diamond plate, you have to prep the 300 grit side with a piece of steel. Only takes a minute or so. Just run it over the entire surface to get rid of any loose diamond that may end up getting embedded into your stone that you're flattening it with, or that you're using it to flatten, just to avoid that issue. And that's all. Okay, we switching back? So Jim's question was, actually, let's go back one more. So favorite piece of furniture. So I'm going to show you this piece over here. So I made this, and I every once in a while in my long career, I would, you just get tired. I wouldn't call it exhausting, but starting from scratch, designing something, there's so much brain power that goes into it, because you got to dream this stuff up, and then you got to make models and prototypes. And I'm not saying it's a pain, I really enjoy it, but it's a lot of work. And so I found the book that Tom Moser wrote on Shaker furniture. Really simple book, line drawings, real easy. And what I liked about it was, it was a style of furniture that I liked, which was Shaker. And all the work was done. I just had to execute it. And that's the real fun part, is just executing it, building it. You got your cutting list, the whole bit. And this history behind this was a tool cabinet that a Shaker man had made for his son. Obviously, they were converts because Shakers are celibate. He'd made for his son. And it was really complicated, and I'll tell you why in a moment. And I don't know why, but my plan was I would build it out of poplar first, and then I would build a good one out of another wood. Well, after building one out of poplar, it's like, oh my goodness, I'm not going through that again. This is a ton of work. So I'm sorry I made it out of poplar, it's about the ugliest wood you're going to find. So if you look at this closely, all of these, I don't even know why it's down here, but all of these dividers, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, are all attached to the opposite piece, not the opposite piece, but the piece that it is perpendicular to, sitting in a dado with through wedge tenons, 3 through wedge tenons. So this piece, there's 1, 2, 3 wedge tenons. This piece, there's 1, 2, 3 wedge tenons. Back here, you can see them. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm trying to add these up. So we start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 times 3 is 36. So there's 36 through wedge tenons in there, and they're tiny. And you'll learn, if you haven't already, that the smaller it is, the harder it is to work. And then, of course, everything is dovetailed. And this sits on the wall in our bedroom. Now, it didn't have, I added this piece afterwards to mount it on, to keep it from sagging. And this was always referred to as the mother's cabinet because my wife had collected these little statues of mothers with their children. They were faceless, but I can't remember who the person that designed them is. But anyway, so it's been in our family for a long, well, I don't know how long, but it's still full of all the stuff. I'm going to get out of here. Okay, now, Jim's question. Building shop furniture. So I go maybe a little bit crazier than we should. Or maybe I shouldn't say that. I do it a little more than what most people might. But I treat shop furniture just like house furniture in a lot of ways. So we're building this one right now. So it's a box and a hole. Now what's unique about this one, we're doing this on the online workshop. I wanted this to be accessible from both sides. So there's a door over here. There'll be a shelf in there. And there's a door here that I had just taken off to show you how to plane around a corner. So all the drawers are designed to pull out from either side. And we put a magnet in the middle so that, and there's a magnet in there, so when you close the drawer, the magnet will hold it in that closed position. We just did this one. So the frame, or the case, all I did was create a hole, and then I built a box to fit in the hole. So these are all sitting in dados, as these are sitting in dados, top and bottom. And that gives you a nice, accurate opening to fit the hole to, or fit the box to. Got 4, 5, 6 more to go. I'll give you one more example over here. So this is where I keep all the stuff from my drills.
No, do this one.
What one?
It's different.
Okay. So on this tool cabinet, the only thing that's different is the way that we hide it. So if we take this out, there's your divider. It's Baltic birch, dadoed into the sides. Don't want to see the edge of that. Well, we designed it in such a way that each drawer extends down below so that each drawer covers the divider below it when it's closed. And you reach in like that. These ones I let the dovetails come all the way through as on the whole thing. So just tell you the quick story on this. I don't even remember how long ago we started this, but the idea when we built it was to make a prototype that we would live with, and then as time went on,
Quite literally, live your life with.
yes, as time went on, we would make changes. Some things never changed. This one did. What we store in here changed completely, so we reconfigured that. We did some reconfiguring on here.
You have to reconfigure the till.
Yeah, I have 2 more saws now to add to this, so I've got to figure out a way to squeeze 2 more saws in there, which may mean I may end up losing a mallet or something.
Or one of those.
Anyway, the point is that this top section is made out of fir plywood and aspen. So this is just prototype. The bottom section, this piece is finished, and this is made out of mahogany and bird's eye maple. So it's finished right to here. Just in the process of doing these drawers. Just in the online workshop today, we got this door almost ready to mount. Got to cut the handle in it. We fitted it. And then we've got to do this pull-out. And as soon as that gets done, and whatever kind of shells we're going to put in there are finished, then the bottom section will be done. And then we'll start the top. And the top is done in 3 sections, 1, 2, and 3. And I've gone through, and there's an M and a, what's the M stand for?
Well, it's supposed to
The
stand for
M's
maple.
for mahogany. Mahogany,
Oh, B. M and B.
yeah. So that's just what the end parts ultimately will be. So there's going to be a lot of drawers. 3, 6, 9, 12 drawers over here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 21 drawers over here. This is where I keep all of my wood screws. This is actually a good idea, and I wouldn't change too much on here. But it represents a ton of work. All right, next, I want to say hello to Angie, and a special shout out to her. So this is Angie. Angie is Ken's cousin, and she's been under the weather for the last, how is she?
Much better.
Oh, good, all right. That's, Ange, do what Lynn says, you'll get better. So Angie has been confined to her room for several years because of an illness, but she's getting better, and she's coming to work. As it is now, she and her sister Lynn do all of our t-shirts, our Purple Heart t-shirts. But she also is, she's connected with the powers above. So Jack Lane wanted to send a big shout out to Angie and thank her for praying for his little, and I say little, great-granddaughter who was born under a pound. Her name is Stella. And she is actually, he just texted me, I think she's down to 40% oxygen. And they're possibly going to take the tube out tomorrow, and she'll be breathing partially on her own. So everybody's pulling for Stella. So in your prayers tonight, remember little Stella. And Frick might be able to get a picture up.
Yeah.
I should.
All right, do that, please. So, Ange, glad you're getting better. Good news. Next question. Subi, we're coming to Florida. I just don't know when. Frick, you got that planned?
Yep, February 2023. We will be there.
February 2023.
February into March. Possibly also into
that
April
little
and
chicken
May.
place is still open because I got it back. Possibly what?
I said February into March and possibly into April and May as well, because we're
Yeah.
right.
As
Yeah.
long as we have another good year.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, here. Wait a minute. I want to read the... so these are the guys that are coming to our class. So we haven't had... I have to mind my manners here because of the way things have happened over the last 2 years. The last time we had a regular Purple Heart project / training the hand workshop was in the fall of 2019. And we managed to get one class in last year. It was Canadians only because the borders weren't open. So this will be the first class that is open to anybody, and it will commence 2 weeks from tomorrow night. We always meet here on a Sunday night, and Frick has a barbecue, and we have a little meet and greet, and then the work starts Monday morning, and we drive them. So here are the names of the 15. Normally it's 14, but we got a special one we had to squeak in. I'll just pull this up for you. Okay, so I'm going to say last names where I know they wouldn't mind. Jack Lane. So I worked with Jack now for 2 years, so this will be the first time we actually meet in person, although there'll be no surprises because I've done enough with him, I know him well. Jack's coming up from Texas. And because Jack's coming, and Jack is in charge of the the bench brigade, Jim Merzetti, who's taken it upon himself to be the Canadian arm, is in Moncton, and he wanted to take the class at the same time. So we make room so that those guys can be in the same class together. And then Eric, who is a friend of Luther's down in Southern California, he's coming. And then Bill, and I'm not going to use your last name because I don't know you well enough to say, but Bill W., Ken Stewart, I said that because I already talked about him tonight. Dean Rampy, because Dean's up in Alaska. I've known Dean a long time. Matthew J., Alex D., Jim Rossetti, I just mentioned. And I'm going to say Scott Schroeder because I know Scott. I met him. Scott is a combat wounded vet coming up from Tennessee. And Gerald P. is another vet that's coming. Wade J. is another vet that's coming. Carlos, last initial G, is coming. Philip, last initial H, is coming. Michael, last initial V, is coming. And Frederick, last initial D, is coming. And I would love to say your last name and where you're from, but without permission, I probably shouldn't. So, boys, we're waiting for you. The hotels are all ready. This week we're gonna get the classroom all set up. We gotta convert it from being a rink back to being a classroom. Get the benches in there. We've got 16 benches all ready to bring over. They're in storage right next door. And then Jake's got to go to work and put all in the drop-down plugs so everybody has light at their bench for their bench lamps. What are you gonna do, Ken, for that?
Well, I just remembered we have to make Scott's bench.
Oh, yeah, we got to do so Scott, we'll interview him when he's here, but Scott was, I saw the picture of the Humvee that Scott was in when they hit the bomb. And he was in the passenger seat. And if the Humvee is a rectangular item, mangled, this part was gone. There was nothing there, and that's where he was sitting. So the fact that he's alive is a miracle. So Scott lost both legs above the knee. So we gotta, and because of COVID, he hasn't been using his prosthesis a lot because people weren't out and about. So he'll be able to use it some of the time, but we've got to get together with Alberta, who designed
I don't remember.
Austin's bench out in Alberta. I can't forget this man's name. He's done 2 of them. He did Josh's and he did Austin's. Somebody will remind me here quickly. Anderson?
Something Anderson.
Yeah, and Loren brought him cookies. That's the best part. Anyway, so we got to get a bench made for him, and we got to get our lumber ordered too. So don't let me forget to do that.
Jeff O'Connor's on.
Hey, Jeff O'Connor just retired December 31st. He told me that when he grows up, he wants to be Super Dave. Whether or not that will happen, we don't know. But Jeff makes the kiss sticks. Jeff and his wife both are entrepreneurs. I wrote them a little note on Facebook today. Really, and you know what? So Jeff and Jeff and Kevin and Danny all are in the process of starting or running their own business. So we work together. We get together by Zoom twice a week, and we have a little mentoring program. We call it a mastermind group. 4 minds are better than one. And we brainstorm, and I always come out of it with ideas. Kevin's given me so many good ideas, it's amazing. You know, you say, why didn't I think of that? Well, you didn't. So anyway, check their website out, Burris, B-U-R-A-S, woodworking.com, that's Kevin. And O'Connor, that's O-R at the end, not E-R, .com. That'll take you to...
O'Connor.com?
What?
O'Connor.com?
O'Connor Woodworking.
Oh, you didn't say
Oh,
that.
I didn't say that? Well, you should have known. O'ConnorWoodworking.com. Go check out Jeff's stuff. Really good. Both of them, very good craftsmen.
Jack Lane says that David Anderson in Alberta.
David, thank you. David, I apologize. I can't remember my kids' names half the time. But David Anderson is an architect. He lives in the middle of Alberta. And like I said, he has built at least 2 benches for us. And he also designed this handicap bench. And I believe he's going to make those plans available for anybody that may be in that situation or knows of somebody and wants to be able to modify a Cosmon workbench to fit someone. That was a really good video, too. We showed that a couple weeks ago. Okay, Frick, question?
Yeah, just before I do that, I'm going to show the picture of Stella because I have it ready here.
Stella. So if you're a Seinfeld fan, which we are, in addition to MASH, Elaine, in the episode where Elaine had too many muscle relaxers, and she gets a little loopy, and she's introduced to somebody named Stella. It's a riot. Stella!
Anyway, there she is.
Oh, I gotta come over and see. I think I've already seen it, but
Yeah, he
So
posted it on Facebook yesterday too.
oh yeah, little Stella. She'll grow up. So Frick he wasn't nearly. Frick has 4 boys. Bentley, who will be 12 this year, and Lincoln, who I'm going to tell you about, and then Cooper and Mickey, who you see running through all the time. So Lincoln was born. Fill in the blanks, Frick.
February 25th, 2013.
Genius.
Thanks.
Pure genius.
I wasn't paying attention. Oh, he was born 8 weeks early,
He weighed
4 pounds.
4 pounds. So Erica had to go into lived in the hospital with him for those. How long was he in there? Was it just over a month.
Yeah, a little over 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the only boy that was born in a hospital, and only because he was early. The rest were all born at home.
All home births. We only had one, which was Bo. Anyway, so Lincoln's caught up.
Caught up
Yeah.
with what?
Is he in the normal in the?
Oh, I don't. No, he's still pretty skinny. But yes, he's fine. In fact, it didn't take him long at all. If he probably stayed in there another 8 weeks, he would have been huge, like his brothers.
So there you go, Stella. You'll be fine. Okay, question, Frick?
Yep.
Can you get something for me? You're looking. No more vets.
Dave McKibben in Minnesota
Hi, Dave.
says on the MDF benchtop free video from several years ago, you drilled the benchtop holes at a slight angle.
Don't need to.
How did you control the drill angle, and what drill bit did you use?
Are we going to carry those?
Yeah, we've just never tested them.
All right. So, Ken, would you mind grabbing me a bench dog so I can explain to them why we don't need to do that? You know what I mean? Aluminum?
Yeah.
One of our bench dogs. Thank you. So, your bench dog holes are canted. And what I mean by that is, if you were to look, I'll bring this up high as I can. There's about a 4-degree slope. So this one is sloped this way, and this one is sloped the opposite way. And the reason is so that when you clamp your pieces in, and these are going to spring back a little bit, if they were straight up and down, in springing back, they would allow the board to come up. But by having them canted toward each other, they'll not only will they not allow it to spring up, but you can tap on them and it'll pull it down tight. Thank you. Tight to your bench top. So when I first did this, I drilled all the holes, canted 4 degrees, and the ones on the movable jaw, I did the opposite way. And then one day Jake said to me, "Well, Dad, they've already done that to the face." So the face of these has that slope on there, so you just drill your hole perpendicular to your bench top, and everything will be fine. However, if you still want to do it, what we did is we took a piece of, I think it was MDF, probably 3 inches thick, and over at the drill press, I'm just going to tell you how we did it. A drill press, you can tilt your table, it's underneath, tilt the table 4 degrees, drill a hole down through that piece of MDF that I just talked to you about, and then we simply would clamp that on your bench and use that as a guide to drill the rest of it. Now, you couldn't drill all the way through that big guide and get all the way through, but you would get in far enough that you could then take the guide off, put the drill back in the hole, and
The other
finish
thing
the
to
bit.
do would be to just drill it and then cut the bottom on the table saw.
Yeah, you could do that. So if you don't have a tilt, actually, you know what? The easier way is just to have somebody eyeball it for you and drill a hole through. And as far as what bit, these are expensive. That's not 1 inch, that's 7/8, I think.
Yeah, that looks one.
My glasses.
1 inch.
Is it? Yeah. So there's a 1 inch brad point. So how expensive are they? Do you remember?
I think it's 45.
Fairly pricey and not readily available either. You got to look. Most typical hardware stores are not going to have a 1 inch brad point. don't need a brad point, but what I used to do before we got that is I would use a Forstner bit to start the hole because it would be nice and clean, and then finish it with a twist, 1-inch twist bit. Next frick. Am I forgetting anything, Ken? Frick?
What angle is your plane? This is from Ralph Simons in Bothell, Washington.
Hi, Ralph.
What angle is your plane till set to so that you don't need anything retaining the planes?
Oh, well, let's measure it. I'm going to say 15 degrees, but I don't know that. The reason I say that is because for some reason that comes to mind. Can't really, can't lay that right up against it, but that look like it?
Yeah, close enough.
What's Maggie want?
Probably in here.
Maggie? Come. Shop guard dog.
Afraid of her shadow.
What are we doing here now? How am I going to read this? Put that down like that.
Chris, you want to help him? You want to help him?
Yeah, we got an engineer here. This is what? That's what it is. I'm having a senior moment here.
Here, use the other protractor.
Oh my goodness. I can't think straight. It's the pressure of all the lights and the cameras. What's my next excuse? If I put that on there like that, that looks close. Why didn't I just go with what I originally thought?
15.
No. 25. It's 25 degrees. So that's at a 25-degree slope. But you know what? You could have got away with less. I mean, that doesn't even begin to start to get precarious until up about there.
But
So that could sat in there like that.
it
Could have
doesn't
sat
really,
in
it
there.
doesn't really matter.
Well, the only thing is it keeps this from having to be an extra inch higher.
So sitting it down is actually more beneficial.
Yeah. Well, and then you think about it. You got all this wasted space in behind there. I got a good mind to cut a little door in there, put stuff in there that I put for safekeeping so that I won't
Forget
lose
where
it.
it is.
I won't find it either.
Something in there you'll never see again.
Exactly. Need spots like that. Keep all my money there. Next Rick.
Chris D'Amico.
Hey, Chris. That sounds familiar. I think I talked to him today.
Chris D'Amico in Connecticut.
I
He
did.
says, I've been freehand my sharpening plane blades and chisels, but I've found I'm taking them out of square. Is there a way to bring them back into true without a grinder?
Yeah, just do the opposite of what you did. So the problem that most people encounter, and it's far easier to do on narrow chisels, is typically you're applying too much pressure. I always try to have my students understand that you need to be able to feel what's going on through your fingers, and you can't do that if you're pushing too hard. So it's a light to medium pressure, and you're wanting to put the same amount of pressure on this side as you are on that side. So the more fingers you can get on there, usually the more
Uniform.
the more you can disperse the pressure uniformly. I was fishing for a word that I wasn't finding. Now you're trying to correct it. So if this corner was low and this one was high, meaning you sloped it, you've got it like this at an angle, then I would go in and I would put all the pressure right there. And I probably wouldn't go right out to the end. I would probably sit about 1/3 of the way, put the pressure there, and go ahead and sharpen. And it's tedious because you're trying to do it by hand and it doesn't take material very fast. So it's a long, arduous process. I would tell your wife that you really need a bench grinder with a CBN wheel from Rob, and then it's a 3-minute fix, if it's even that long. Next question, Fred.
All right, next question. Next question
Don't
comes
forget to
from-
sign up for the draw for tonight. Where are we with that?
A little over 1,000.
Wow. Let's see if we can't pick that up.
All right, this is from
We got
Jim.
bets to bring in. Yep.
Jim from Hawaii.
How many are on tonight, by the way?
We're at 606 right now.
Jim from Hawaii.
For hand tool workability, what are your 3 favorite domestic hardwoods and your 3 least favorite?
Had a lumber supplier come by yesterday and offered to give us some e-pay, and we said no, thank you. So that would be up there. Purple Heart is up there. Terrible wood to work.
Wait, he said domestic somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
you
said
said
domestic.
domestic?
Your 3 favorite domestic hardwoods and your least 3 favorite.
Domestic. Okay, well, I'll start over then. Domestic meaning Canada, United States. So my favorite wood is northern white pine. And the reason is that it's such a warm wood. And of all the woods out there, nothing ages better than pine. In fact, pine is probably the only wood that looks better 10 years from now than it does in the beginning. Every other wood looks better when it's fresh, with the exception of cherry. I can hear you. But the problem with cherry is it will bleach out to be almost as blonde as maple if it's in a situation where there's a lot of UV light. So you kind of have to plan a little farther down the road when you make stuff so that you realize what it's going to look like in 10 years' time. Classic example, I did a cabinet. It's right up there. Not a cabinet, it's a table. And it has, where are those drawers?
Mahogany and bird's eye.
Mahogany drawer fronts with, I'm sorry,
Mahogany drawer sides.
drawer sides out of mahogany. And can you jump up there and get that?
Does it look like it?
Well,
I guess the better question is, can you?
take a header on live TV.
You're like Newman. You're like Newman climbing that tree for the fur coat.
We can hear Angie now saying, oh, no.
So, I love to show off dovetails. So I built this, and I wanted contrast, not realizing that the end grain of the maple would eventually almost disappear. Can you see that at all?
You can in different light.
So there's mahogany end grain on mahogany face, and there it is in bird's eye. So you just have to make sure that you're not building for today, you're building for a little farther down the road. So favorite is northern
Top
white
3.
pine. Top 3, northern white pine.
Cherry.
Yeah, I would put cherry in as one of the 3. And bird's eye maple. Come, Meg. Bird's eye maple would round it out. And the 3 domestics, red oak. Red oak. I really don't have any use for red oak at all. When they outfit McDonald's and fast food restaurants with a particular species, that's long past when you should stop using it. Personal opinion. Poplar, because it stinks, has a terrible smell, and it's just it's a secondary wood. There's nothing pretty about it. And third domestic wood that are my least favorite to work.
Alder?
Oh, yeah. I hate alder. It's a weed. It's a weed. That's the 6. Interesting question.
All right, next question is from Richard in Discovery Bay, California.
Hey, Richard.
What kind of in-feed support jig can be constructed to help when cutting those cumbersome full sheets of plywood?
I'm sorry, I was thinking something different when you said that. Read that again, please.
What kind of an in-feed support jig can be constructed to help when cutting those cumbersome full sheets of plywood?
In-feed. Well, you know what? Sometimes I'm in there working by myself. We have carts that have really good wheels. So at Woodcraft, you can buy really nice casters. I'm just looking to see. There's some, there were here. These ones right here. These casters. They're really smooth. If you have a nice smooth floor, build yourself a table. We've got all kinds of them. What do we call them? Carts. Build yourself a cart, and I would say make it a little bit lower than your table saw, and then you can just pad it up to whatever you need, and you can use that as a means of supporting your plywood as you go to make your cut. And, obviously I couldn't have this mat here, but I would be back here 8 feet, the cart would be somewhere in the middle, and as I would push it, the cart would eventually bump into this, but that's okay, then it would just become a stationary table, and you can just finish your cut. So, good question, and that's a good answer. Next, Frick.
Yep, Joe Phillips in King George, Virginia.
Hey, Joe.
Is there any advantage to cutting the drawer bottom grooves before cutting the dovetails?
Is there any advantage to cutting the drawer bottom grooves before the dovetails? No, there really isn't, because if you're really close, it makes it awkward to chop when you're cutting in between your pins or your tails. I don't think so. Now, sometimes you want to at least lay it out so that you know when you lay out your dovetail that you get. I always try to make it so that the drawer bottom groove goes in between 2 pins. So instead of having to do a stopped groove on 3 pieces, you're only having to do it on 2. If you even have to. If it's a half blind, you wouldn't have to. So if see what I mean? Look at a drawer here, right here.
No, oh yeah.
This one. So on a half blind, as long as your drawer bottom groove goes between these 2 invisible pins, you don't have to worry. Because on this one, it doesn't matter because it's a half blind, so you're not going to see it anyway. But I wouldn't want to have to stop it so that I don't have to go, I wouldn't have to stop it here so that I don't end up taking off a piece of the pin. So that you may lay out beforehand. Lay out, not cut. I cut them after. Next, Frick.
All right. Where do I have it here? Lester Smith in Marietta, Georgia.
Hey, Lester.
He says, when making drawers, I've noticed that you place the groove for the drawer bottom 3/8 of an inch from the bottom. Is this a standard measurement? Or is that the standard measurement?
No. However, that, I don't know, but it seems that the spacing for what the consideration I just mentioned always seems to be relatively close to that. So that's why I end up doing it. And I made my drawer bottom plain. I made my drawer bottom planes to accommodate that dimension. So that's why we make it the way we make it. But no. But I mean, as far as why do it that way, you want, you don't want a little wee tab of wood left at the bottom of that groove, so you need a little bit of meat there. But you don't want it way up here either, because then that's all wasted space, right? Get as much access, get as much capacity as possible. Next, Frick.
Okay, so this comes from Drago Dichev in Santa Barbara, California.
Drago.
He says,
Barbara. Been there.
For cutting end grain, what is the role of mouth opening and what is the ultimate cutting angle or angle of attack for end grain?
So there really is no reason to set the mouth opening at anything other than open wide enough to get the shaving out, because the throat does not come into play when you're cutting end grain. So, we've always been told that you want low angle for end grain. I don't know how true that is. If you look at a standard angle, is this one standard, Jake? If you look at there's two block planes. This is a standard angle. And we've always been told the block planes were for end grain, but somebody told you a lie. Standard angle block plane, the angle of attack is calculated by adding the angle of the bed to the bevel and any secondary or tertiary bevels that are added to that. So in this case, you've got 20 degrees plus 25, which is 45. And usually most people are putting a micro bevel on there, so add another 3 degrees to 45, you're probably planing somewhere at 48 degrees. Well, that's 3 degrees higher than you do on a regular bench plane, because on a regular bench plane, the bevel's on the bottom side, so you only factor in the bedding angle, which is 45 degrees. On a low angle block plane, your bedding angle is 12 degrees. So you have 12 plus 25 is 37. And if you add another 3 or 4 degrees in there, you could be in the low 40s. Well, that's not a whole lot lower than 45. So let me put it to you this way. Planing end grain is more about how sharp the blade is than the angle of attack, I think. Now, if you get up around 50, 55 degrees, that's obviously going to be a different story, but you can use, I don't like the low angle jack plane. Jeff does, I don't. It doesn't have enough surface area to make it really stable on its side. And I don't like the adjustment mechanism. So my 5.5 is my go-to on the shooting board. And I'm planing at 45 degrees. And it will do as good a job as you're going to get on any low angle plane. And like I said, low angle plane is a bit of a, by the time you add in your secondary and your tertiary bevel, you're almost planing at 45 degrees anyway, if within a couple of degrees. So sharp blade and some weight behind it is probably far more important for planing end grain than anything else. Next, Frick.
So just a reminder for everyone to hit the like button. We're a little low on likes compared to viewers tonight, so
Maybe I haven't been
Don't
doing a
forget
very
to-
good job.
yeah. If there was still the dislike button, we could figure that out, but there
Did
isn't
they get
anymore.
rid of the dislike button?
Yeah. Well, they
Are you
didn't want to.
kidding me?
They didn't want to hurt your feelings.
No thumbs down.
Yeah, it's just likes now. There's no thumbs down.
You're telling me that YouTube removed the dislike button?
It did.
Do you? Chris still has one. I'm with Chris.
We can boo you if you like.
Yeah, well, just to toughen me up a little, please.
We also wanted to give a shout out to Josh Faust. He does the
Yes, Josh does the.
PHP
These ones.
plaques.
He did
He
one
does
for
them
me.
on his CNC machine. He mails them out at his own expense to all the.
He does. Provides them. Thank you for who suggested that, Jack?
Yes. Yep.
Good. Thank you, Jack. Yeah, he does a wonderful job, and every one of those vets that has received that, just it really gets to them. It's just so nicely personalized. What a wonderful thing for him to do.
He's done over
That-
50 so far.
Awesome.
Thanks again.
Absolutely awesome.
Okay. So we're almost at the end. Last chance to make a donation.
We're sitting at 1,700.
Okay.
Well,
so
come on,
we-
guys. Let's
we-
get over the 2,000 so we can support these boys in their business and buy a second product. And when you get so next when we'll do at least one live broadcast during the
least?
class, at least, yeah, because we're going to do some Facebook. What's that called, Frick?
Instagram.
No, we're going to do some Instagram lives. We'll do a lot of those because Frick's taking that whole week off.
I am.
Yeah.
Without
So
trying.
when you see it and you hear these guys and you hear their stories, then you want to be a part of it. So be a part of it now. Go to my site and find a donation that matches what you want and be part of it. Thank you. Keep going, Frick.
All right, this one comes from Chris Sonego in Florida.
Hey, Chris. And by the way, a big thank you to the people we've got people that donate every time, and that is awesome. But you get your reward. You know exactly why you do it, and it's incredible.
Shout out to Sue B. Always donates.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sure there's
I was
a few.
thinking that, and I didn't want to say one, not others.
Yeah,
but
I know there's many. Okay, so Chris's question is, can you go over your lighting strategy when cutting dovetails? I'm having a hard time seeing depending on which side I'm cutting.
Oh, there's no strategy. It's just this lamp. And we provide these now because people asked. So you turn that lamp on, and we sell them with a mushroom. So instead of having that little half-inch shank that's actually part of the drill, which is very weak, that half-inch shank, we reinforce it with a piece of steel rod, and then we turn a mushroom that goes in a 1-inch diameter hole. So instead of this turning in the wood, the mushroom does, and then you can just put that wherever you want, so you can highlight it, and oh yeah, this is great. It's amazing what you can do when you can see. Next.
This comes from Andy Wakeford Smith.
Hey, Andy, where is
He's
he?
in Caterham, Surrey, England. I have my grandfather's Bedrock 607 plane, and I'm looking for a replacement 2 3/8 blade. Would the IBC one or the Wood River one fit the plane, or do I have to find a Stanley one? Thank you. Your tutorials are outstanding.
Thank you. Well, yeah, you have let me explain the problem. Jacob, I got a Stanley here? Yeah. Thanks to Ahmed. So here's the problem. I'll show you the solution, but it's no longer a solution because we can't get them. So if you take a Stanley apart, there's your yoke. So a Stanley blade was typically anywhere from 75 to 85 thousandths of an inch in thickness. The yoke has to go through the blade to get to this slot in the chip breaker. And the yoke controls the forward and the advancing and retracting of the blade. Well, if you put a thick blade on there, all of a sudden the yoke can't make it to here or doesn't quite, and you either don't have any adjustment or very little. You got to tap it. That's a pain. So I developed back in 2008, came up with this idea for a way to look at the difference in thickness of the blade. 75 thou versus 140 thou. But what I did is I said, if the yoke can't make it to the blade, make it to the chip breaker, then take the chip breaker to the yoke. So we added these little tabs of metal on either side of that opening. So now when you put this together, those little tabs of metal reach down far enough that it makes contact with that short yoke, and you get your travel, plus you get a nice big thick blade. However, for some reason, IBC doesn't want to make these anymore, or hasn't made them for a while. So we've been waiting for
2 years.
2 years. I don't know whether we're ever going to get them again or not. So the answer to your question is, you're going to max out at about 95 thousandths of an inch. So Hawk blades make a replacement that's 95 thousandths of an inch. Lee Nielsen makes a replacement blade that's 95 thousandths or 90 thousandths of an inch, one of the two. So right now, those are your only options until we can get IBC to start making these again. We probably have back orders for a couple hundred of them. Next question, Frick. We got time for one more? Any- Is it? How much?
Yeah, it's 8:57. Wrap it up. I got to put this draw together.
Well, give me,
you want me
Ken,
to-
any more vets?
No. Jeff, what's the last
Why do you have square bench dogs instead of rounded? What are the pros and cons of each of them?
Just tradition. And traditionally they were square.
And it's nice that those are,
The advantage,
don't
the
change
advantage,
orientation.
what?
those don't change orientation.
Yeah, the advantage of the round is you're just drilling a hole, right? Whereas this is a lot more work. I like the fact that it doesn't turn on you. But you know what? That spring on there, that doesn't turn much either. You probably have, no, you got the same, almost the same, you got the same amount of surface area, so you really can't say that that's anything different. So I would have to say that it's mostly just traditionally that they were rectangular.
Ray Doors on,
Ray, cool Ray from Louisiana. Ray, haven't seen you in a while. It's always great. Whenever I think of Ray, I always think of the mule. The mule was this funky looking motorized cart used in Vietnam. Hey Ray, great to hear from you. All right, we
That's it.
done?
Yep, we're ready.
So did we make the 2,000 mark?
1900.
That's close enough. That's close enough. We'll give away 2. So tonight we're going to give away Bobbert's tumbling block board. And who did we do last week? Last week we did Jeff, so this week we do Kevin. And Kevin's,
Kevin sent us a picture of the one he customized.
yeah, I don't know how, can you post it?
Yeah, I got it here,
Oh, show that.
I believe.
So if you win that tonight and you have a particular military themed request, there's a possibility that Kevin may be able to personalize that for you.
It's showing now.
Okay?
All right.
So our first 3 draws are for dead cats.
Yep. All right, winner number
Now,
1.
wait a minute. Hold on a second. We're going to get a testimonial. Jake. Chris, when did you buy your dead cat? Show it to them. Show it to them. This is his 2 of them?
I just had one.
Oh, it's one.
3, but I gave them all to brother-in-laws and nephews.
So this is the one with the Purple Heart logo on it. So I got a text from Chris one day. He goes, these things must have heaters inside them. How warm is it? As warm as I say it is?
It's the lightest, warmest thing you can wear.
Lightest, warmest thing you can wear. Thank you.
That's getting close to becoming his oil changing dead cat.
So the first winner for the dead cat is Jeff Adams. He put his email address there, but Jeff Adams in Woodbury, Connecticut.
Hey, Jeff, in Connecticut, you still have, your evenings can be cool. You'll love it. Make sure you contact us. Tell us your size.
All right.
Oh, by the way, you have the option, too, of a golf shirt with the Purple Heart logo on it as well. Either or. Next one, Frick.
Next one is going to Barry Johnson in Calgary.
Barry. I've known Barry for 22 years. That's awesome. And Barry was always, Barry came to my classes and he's always been a very supportive customer and a good friend.
And he will definitely.
And Barry, unfortunately, brother, you'll need it all year. Next, Frick.
Next one is Jim Johnston in Toronto.
Hey, Jim. Toronto. Yep. 8 months of the year, it'll be welcomed. 4 months of the year, yeah, you might have to take it off after a while. All right, so let's give away Bob's tumbling block cutting board first.
All right. Tumbling block is going to Mark Kennedy in Langley, BC. All Canadians are winning.
Yeah, no kidding. Mark, congratulations. You'll love it. And the last prize is one of Kevin's custom laser on granite or slate flags
And
with
that
a
is-
theme.
That is going to Michael Jacobson in Washington.
Hey, Michael, congratulations. You'll love it. Make sure you contact us and let us know. Actually, what will happen is the last 2 we'll send your name directly to Bob and to Kevin, and they will ship right from there. So it's rather than have them send up to here to us, and then we turn around and send it back down there. Okay, so next week, our next broadcast will be the Saturday before our PHP class. So that'll be an exciting one. And between now and then, don't forget Stella in your prayers. Thank you, Angie. See you, folks. Appreciate your support.